Vytautas Mineral Spa. Atgauk jėgas ir šypseną.
Hi, good afternoon. I will do this in English, obviously. My Lithuanian is a little bit rusty. So I'm Stefan. What's your name? Just kidding. You don't have to answer. 2 warnings. I'm a really fast speaker. When I'm excited, I also say super, super. So when I'm super, super excited, I go super, super. So you will hear that a lot. I'm also swearing a lot. Damn things. Oh, this is goddamn ugly. I'm also one of those people who ask questions. Have you ever, and you don't ever have to answer any of these questions. I just do this automatically, just so you know. It's part of the show. So, yeah, I am a trend hunter. I'm a journalist as well. I do various things in this industry. And I'm going to be sharing with you the things that we're going into right now. We're going through difficult times, and I have the answer to where we're going. But before we start, I just want to emphasize on how I work, because that's sort of like give a signal on what we're going to be talking about. A person like me, I read lots of reports. I read statistical reports constantly of everything. How many dogs are we getting? Are we moving or not? What sort of like names are popular? I read everything because that gives a number. Is there a change? If there's a change, then we have a tendency or a trend. And I think that's really interesting. Secondly, I do interviews. I can talk to like important people, opinion leaders, but I can also talk to like Morten, who was here on stage before me. And we talked last night, and I could talk about, so what are you doing this weekend, for instance? Now, Easter is coming up. Someone is planning something for the weekend. And that answer will give a conclusion on where we are, where we're going. So interview is an important part of my job as well. Thirdly, I put this in historical context. Have we done this before? Like, for instance, right now, we're now slowly but surely leaving the pandemic, and everyone is talking about the pandemic in the 1920s. Are there similarities? Have we learned something? Can we make a conclusion of what we did in the 1920s on how we will behave in the future? So historical references are important to me, and I'm a historian. When I went to university, I studied history, not like design. I studied history because I think it's how people behave that's interesting to me. And lastly, the 4th bullet point here is my observations, I call them. I travel a lot, basically constantly. I spend at least 1 night a week in a hotel room, like this time I'm in Vilnius. And I travel, because I need to see what happens out there. I go to these sort of like design fairs to see what room is important. Is it the kitchen? Is it the bathroom? What colors are important? What materials? How do we behave? It's my job to go to those fancy restaurants and try to experience that, sort of like eating. It's my job to go to those design stores and shop. It's my job to do these sort of like design-oriented things. I'm sorry, but that's my job, and I do it for you. It's all for you. So that's what I do. And when you conclude this, you talk about sort of like where we are, and where we're going to. And of course, everyone is interested in time. So how long in the future are we looking? And normally I would say 2-3 years. Some people want to have an exact number, like is this 2024? I think it's irrelevant because things are changing constantly. But this is a few years ahead of us from now on. And before we start, everyone's here to talk about the mega trends because that sounds important. It sounds really, really important. But I'm going to be talking about megatrends and also the aesthetic trends, and that's why you're really here. You want to know if orange is the new black. That's what you want to know. But we are going to be talking about megatrends on our behavior. And we're going to be doing that in 4 chapters, and the 4 chapters are these. So, yeah, fairly easy overview. I'm not like Morten having those like nice slides. My job is to make it clear. When I talk about examples for the future, my job is to make it clear and understandable. And also when I talk about sources, because I do like refer to statistical resources, I will always have it a source point here, so you can always double check me. You can take snapshots if you want to. Most of the pictures are mine from travels and fairs and things I've seen, so whatever you find interesting. I'm going to be bombarding you with information. So when I'm done, after like 45 minutes, and I will be like, so does anyone have any questions? You're going to be like, what the fuck did he say just 45 minutes ago? So my recommendation to you is take notes, because it's going to be fast. And we're going to be talking about lots of things in our behavior in our world right now. So let's kick this off. Let's talk about happy. Well, this is our world right now. I don't know if you realize this, but everything is super bad. Everything is super, super bad. It's terrible right now. I mean, the climate changes are terrible, the financial crisis, the recession, the war in Ukraine. I mean, there's like everything. They talk about the perfect storm. And I could have sort of like thrown up lots and lots of graphs with how bad things are. I'm not going to do that, but I have two examples. This is just one example of internationally how the world is going down the drain. The only country who's doing good is Saudi Arabia. Are we moving there now? I'm not sure I want to do that, but that's the only country in the world who's surviving. No one else is. But you can talk it from a different perspective too, which is this slide. It's super difficult to see what it says here, but basically it's how we feel. The source is down here at the bottom. That's how we feel emotionally. And we feel terrible. This is internationally. And you can compare how we feel now to how we did during the Second World War. We feel worse now than we did in the 1940s and 50s. Just so you know. That's where we are. So regardless on numbers on recession, on climate change and how bad things are, we feel terrible. That's how we feel. Life is shit. And we're stopping to consume. And just so you know, there are also graphs and numbers on this. We're done consuming. We're done. No one wants to buy anything anymore, ever. So the ones of you who are working with design, I'm sorry. You'll have to change work path. You'll have to do something else, because no one will buy your things. And there are numbers to that too. This is the biggest change right now. I see some phones taking pictures of this. And this is, I mean, there are like tons and tons of sources talking about how consumerism is done. For those of you who's working with the event industry, which I hope some of you are, we can talk about the experience industry, and that's still relevant, and that's still accurate. Where you consume something, that's an experience, but not a product. We're done with that. And talking about retail, this is not me on stage. If someone was thinking that, that's another lady, that's not me. Normally, when a person like me goes on stage like this, I tend to say like, well, consumerism is dead, no one wants to buy anything else. And just so you know, these are accurate numbers. Someone actually counted in New York, 25% of all stores will be closing. 25% of all physical stores will be closing. These are old numbers. These are old numbers. Nowadays, this is at a conference when I went to in October last year. Now people are talking about 70% of all physical stores are closing. Just so you know. This is not my fault. I mean, this is something we'll have to take into consideration. What's our cities going to look like? I mean, everything, all retail is closing. Everyone is struggling. No one is doing really good. This is also sort of like an introduction of where we are right now. I'm starting with a gloom picture. So when everything is super, super bad, which it is, when everything is super, super bad, what do you want to do then? Then you want to hang out with happy people. So that's why I call my first trend happy. Because that's where we want to be. We want to hang out with people and brands and experience that makes us happy, that makes it fun, that makes us survive a boring Wednesday or whatever it is today. Spring never comes. I mean, snowing again. Who do you want to hang out with? You want to hang out with the people that makes it fun, that makes it happy. And therefore, I have 2 or maybe 3 examples, depending on how much I edited out. So my first example, did you hear about what McDonald's did just before Christmas? Did you hear this is what my first question you don't have to answer to. Did you hear what McDonald's did just before Christmas? They launched Happy Meals for grown-ups. I think that's amazingly fun. I think it's super, super fun. And I think it's finally our time to buy hamburgers and get plastic toys. Finally, it's our turn to do that. It was a limited edition, so it's not available anymore. But the whole concept of, you do something that's fun, that stands out, and gives energy. These are the brands you want to hang out with. I also read, I think it was in January or maybe in February, that in Poland, one of the McDonald's restaurants, they knitted in the McDonald's restaurant. Oh, that's fun. I want to go there. I want to experience that. And I realized that the fashion industry is also going there. No one wants to have high fashion with this like snotty and like high heels and boring people. You want to hang with fun people. So also the fashion industry is addressing this. And I realized this is also the same idea with why Louis Vuitton is co-working with Lego. Because Lego, no one wants to buy expensive handbags anymore. But you want to build your brand, so you do it with Lego. Because Lego is something we can associate with. We played with it when we were kids. It's easy, it's accessible, it's fun, it's creative. So of course, brands want to be co-working with these sort of like opportunities. So this is where we're going. This is the happy trend where we're aiming for. There's even a word right now. This is your industry. This is the event industry. There's even a word right now where people are talking about moments economy. Because we're looking for opportunities to celebrate. We're looking for an opportunity to have fun. Come on, it's Wednesday. We've survived half of the week. Let's get a drink. I mean, it's almost spring. I hear it's going to get warmer next week. Let's celebrate. So there's a moment economy. And this is something that's also part of this world that we're going through right now. We want to hang out with people that make it fun, and we want to celebrate. We want to make it bearable. We want to survive. That's basically what we want. And there are numbers to this too. I said that I like statistics because statistics gives an accuracy and a number to it. And you can double check here if you want to. And what it says here, internationally, people are looking more and more for opportunities to celebrate. I mean, that's internationally where we're going to celebrate Wednesday. We survived March. March was terrible. Let's get a drink. Come on. So this is where we're going. And who is the best people in the world to celebrate? My Swedes. You didn't know that, did you? Oh, that's right. I'm touring internationally with my trend presentation, and when I did this, and I got an email from the Brazilians. The Brazilians were like, well, come on, we have Carnival. And I'm going like, yeah, but we have cinnamon rolls. So there's a competition, So yeah, celebration is enormously important. So for everyone who's working with this trying to solve this harsh times, find happiness, find an opportunity to get a drink. I cannot overemphasize this. I'm not done with the happy chapter. For those of you who's reading Time magazine, and this is from January, the last week of January, so all of you can go back and read this issue if you want to, because it's really fresh. So Time magazine had a happiness issue, and they went to all the researchers in the world and looked to the important question, how can I guaranteed be happy? And they went and looked, and they talked to everyone, all the philosophers, all the researchers. How can you guaranteed be happy? And what is the answer? Again, you don't have to answer. No hands up, please. What's the answer to guaranteed happiness? Hanging out with your friends. That's what the research says. So again, the shift from status objects. You don't get happy. Maybe you get a tiny second of happiness by buying a Louis Vuitton bag, but hanging out with your friends makes you guaranteed happy. So yeah, more of that. So that was my first part. We're moving on to the second part of my mega trends. The second part that we're going to look at now, that always happens at recessions, because we are in a recession, or we're heading full force into a recession. What happens then is that you look into history. You want to look at roots, you want to look at, have we done this before, have we learned something, how bad is it really? So, the last recession we had, do you remember? Again, no answers. Do you remember? Last recession we had was 2008. And what we can do is, of course, look, what did we do? What behavior did we have in 2008? So that's 2008, and this is what you looked like 2008. Ta-da! Not so trendy anymore, is he? a little bit skinnier, a little bit unkissed, maybe a little bit, I don't know. But that's how you looked 2008. I thought I was really cool with that leather jacket. I realize now I should have left it at home. Regardless, 2008, the recession, bank closed, with terrible news all over the world. All over the world. Everyone was hit by this recession. What did we do then? What did we do then? Well, we started food trucks. So food trucks is something that occurs at that recession. And why does that occur? Well, we need to find some sort of like eating opportunity, restaurant, some sort of like restaurant experience, but cheaper. So yeah, food trucks, sometimes we talk about food trucks as we've always had them, but they're a result of the financial crisis of 2008. Also crisp or a luxurious crisp with parmesan on it or whatever, because we can't afford a 7-course meal at a restaurant. But we want to make it a little bit, special on Saturday night. So we have Parmesan crisps or chips or whatever language you want to talk about. Hipster movement, that's when I got my beard. So around 2009, that's when I got my beard. So the whole hipster movement started 2008. And why? Well, we stayed at home. We didn't have to shave. Or something. The whole hipster movement started 2008, and the fermentation movement, everyone stayed at home and started to do their own fermentation. And why that? Well, we were forced to be at home. So the conclusion is, similar things will happen now. Honestly. I mean, maybe it looks like it's far off, but similar things will happen. And I just want to encourage you, because sometimes we talk about this recession as being like super, super bad and super, super draining, and we're all going to be dying, and no one's going to be survived. Stores are closing, everything is super, super depressing. But new experiences and new things are occurring constantly with these sort of like recessions, and they will happen again. I realize that you all want to ask me, okay, Stefan, you should know what things will occur this time. And honestly, I don't know, because things are changing so fastly and very, very dramatically. So things are changing so much. I have no idea, but I can guarantee it will happen. And I think it will happen after summer, just so you know. So beware of what people are going for, what they're doing after summer. Why summer? Well, now the whole of spring is going to be super depressing, and then summer, everyone's going on vacation, so no one's really working. So when people are coming back and they realize, I need to start doing something, that's when people are starting to do like food trucks or something similar new. That will happen, because it always happens. History. Well, I think that we're leaving nostalgia and looking more into proper history, like history. For instance, I have Vilnius 700-year celebration here as well. And I think it's that we're looking to longer history. I mean, because we've been talking about nostalgia for a while, so we want to talk about a different story about history. And also, next year, something very important will happen. I'm sure you're all aware. It's going to be the Olympic Games. In Paris. Did you know? No answers. And have you seen the mascots of the Olympic Games yet? They were released just before Christmas. The official mascots of the Olympic Games 2024 are the Phrygian cap. And then you go like, man, that's okay. But it's really funny. Honestly, it's funny. First of all, it's historical. It's an historical reference. But these are the same hats they were wearing during the French revolutions, when they were going like, off with their heads. All the nobilities were killed in the guillotines and whatever. And now the streets of Paris are going to be filled with Phrygian caps again. Are they going to be killing people too? Maybe they will do like a gimmick guillotine, I don't know. But these are the official mascots for the Olympic Games next year. And they're very trendy in that sense. They are historical references. So, historical references. And now, 3 quick bullet shots, because everything interior design-wise looks like this. You've seen it. You've flicked through all the magazines. Everything is a Greek sculpture. Everything is a Greek sculpture, or a column, or whatever. So everything looks like that. Now, moving on to retail again. Have you heard about bookstore dating yet? This is not necessarily about historical references, but rather about, I think we're going to look for something academic or intellectual or heartwarming, maybe, perhaps. I think these are values that we're looking for. And bookstore dating. Bookstores have changed for the last 20 or 30 years. Bookstores were closing because no one was buying books. You all read that. I mean, no one is buying books. And all of a sudden, people are buying books. And the bookstores are changing. So they're adding a cafe at the bookstore. And if you have a cafe, you could also have wine. And if you have wine, you can have dating, right? So the concept bookstore dating is actually a thing that's happening in America. And so I think this is an example of how retail needs to change. I don't know if you have any contacts in retail, but retail is not about buying a product anymore, like a book. Retail today is being a platform for dating. I'm a little bit exaggerating this, of course, but I think that we need to look at retail as being something else than just buying things over the counter. Bookstore dating is one example, and what's interesting with the bookstore dating is that sort of like the store owner needs to let them do their own things. They're not monitoring them. They're not sort of like, so can I recommend you a book to read with the wine? No, it's rather like you do your own thing. You sit there, you drink your wine, and look at the books, and that's all fine. And that's the new retail. That's the new retail. I have another answer to what the new retail is as well, but I'm going to come back to that. And now it's time for water, or at least soon. I can go through my next slide while I pour myself a glass. The third chapter I want to talk about is quiet quitting. You should have heard about it because it's been written about it in lots and lots of magazines. In America, this is an American reference, you talk about quiet quitting. In Asia or in China, you talk about tan ping. Basically means the same thing. It means getting off the bandwagon. I'm done. I cannot chase around anymore. I'm done. That's what this means. So, we're done chasing. I'm done having like a full-time job, trying to work out constantly, having happy children and go to yoga and do like fine dine tasting menus with my friends. I'm done. I'm done. That's what this trend means. Getting off the bandwagon and try to do something else on my own terms. That's why we have another sort of like big trend also happening. I don't know if it happens here in Vilnius, but it happens in all other larger cities, which is meaning like you're leaving the city. You're leaving the city and moving to the country house. You're living in the country house and everything is like scaled down. That's what this means. That's what this means. And this is a huge international phenomenon. So we have had the term fear of missing out, FOMO, and now we're changing this to joy of missing out, JOMO. This is a little bit of like ha-ha with this, but I mean, the whole concept is, of course, we're done chasing happiness. I just want it to be calm and quiet and on my terms. I want to set the agenda, not someone else. That's what this means. And it's interesting to see how this evolves, of course. One of the most interesting color experts I know is Brazilian, Michel Lott. He made this color chart, and he made the color chart for the exhausted. And I think it's just so fun and intelligent that he makes a color chart that's for the exhausted, because sometimes I think we all feel a bit exhausted. That constant changing. How do I have time for yoga? I need to be relaxed in 5 minutes. It's done with that. And of course, we're going to be talking about how we work. That's also part of this. I have this as an example because it's interesting, because it's Hornbach, which is a large international company. So this is an international reference. People are talking about, and we still don't know how we're going to be working after the pandemic. Are we working from home or from an office? We don't know. No one knows. And this is about, so should you work like fewer hours per week? Is that more important to you? So the talk is there. The conversation about work is there. And then again, of course, retail is also like, you're done with the fancy stores, you're done with everything looking fancy, you want some heart, passion, and local. I think, I talked about that 70% of all retail is going down. I think that these are their biggest competitors, not the fancy mall. The fancy mall is gone. We're not going to be using the fancy mall. Instead, their biggest competitor is like two girls, usually girls. They find an empty space, They hang up some lights in the ceiling and they invite their friends. Maybe someone's doing pottery, maybe someone's writing poetry on leaves, maybe someone is weaving something in the corner. You visualize this, all of you, because you've all seen it. And this is the future of retail. Honestly, it's nothing fancy, but this is the future of retail. This is what we want to do. This is engaging. This is community-driven. I was actually in London a few weeks ago. Again, that's my job. I need to try these sort of like retail experiences. So I went to London. I don't know if you've heard it, but H&M and IKEA, my Swedes, they made a new product. So H&M and IKEA made a new concept store. It's available. You can look it and see more about it online. It's called, I'm saying it slowly, I'm trying to. It's called Atelier 100. 100 with numbers, .com, atelier100.com. And what they're doing is hyper-local. That's what they're doing. So they're doing things that are hyper-local. They're done by designers that are local, and their material is local, and they're selling it to customers who are local. It's a pity it's so fucking ugly. You're going to see it when you flick through the things that are on sale. But I think it's enormously interesting that two of the largest players in retail, IKEA and H&M, go together and do something like this. And apparently they realize no one wants to buy their things anymore, so they need to experiment with something else. And that is hyperlocal, community-driven. And that's where the future of retail is. No one wants to buy the same things that everyone else has. You want to buy unique pieces. And that was chapter 3. Chapter 4, I told you before, I'm going to be talking a lot, so if you have any questions, you're going to be forgetting about it, so write things down. We need to talk about sustainability, of course, because sustainability is on everyone's lips, and we need to address it somehow. And I have, as a trend expert, a trend person on stage, I've been talking about sustainability since the beginning of my career, since 2005 about. But I look back the last 10 years to see how have we been talking, what words were we given sustainability, and how has it changed. So this is my thinking and my results. So 10 years ago, we started talking about sustainability as sort of like urban farming. We had a girl on a roof growing salad. And that was urban farming. That's what we talked about then. The year after, we talked about interesting products that were made sustainable, and we thought that would be inspiring to other people. So this stool is covered in salmon skin. Super expensive, no one bought it. And that's also a part of the story, because it was not super interesting to sell things. We were there to inspire people. The year after, we talked about the forest and the woods, how everything is inspiring there, and everyone got a tree tattoo. Everyone got a tree tattoo. The year after that, we talked about eating. We talked about nose to tail, how we're going to be eating the whole pig or the whole broccoli. Nothing is waste, so everything is eaten. And then the year after that, we talk about giving back. An example is, of course, the American brand Tom's. You buy a pair of shoes and you give a pair of shoes to someone else. 2018 is the year of Greta, and 2019 we talked about emissions and rights to do that. Brands were talking about how they were going to be climate positive. 2020, local was important. We wanted to buy things that were made locally and with materials that were local. We were upset and kind of confused with all these logos of everything. And the year after, we're now in 2021, we sort of like step back. This is a super strange year. I think that historians will look back at 2021, because 2021 we talked about it's important. We go like, okay, and what's new? Was it not important 2 years ago? But every communication that we did 2021 was about there's no planet B. There's no, you realize that, because everything was about we've done now. Now we're getting up to our time. So last year we talked about repair. Lots of repair initiatives and repair concepts were out there. And now, so where are we today? I will give you an answer soon, but some of the things that I see right now that we are talking about that I think is interesting are these, for instance, like vintage or anti-consumerism is still there, energy consumption is there. It's going to be interesting to see how EU is handling this. They have they're trying to make laws and regulations around this. New materials out there, carbon dioxide, biodiversity, and of course greenwashing. Everyone's talking about greenwashing, but the most important topic is, and I'm going to give that to you very soon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to do it right away. I think that the most important thing that we're talking about when it comes to sustainability is right now, it's waste. Meaning, of course, that we're going to be minimizing waste, but actually doing something with waste. As an example, let's say I have an orange. I peel the orange, I eat the orange, and then I have the peels. Normally, I would let that go to compost. But now, this is a material. I will dry it and I will grind it down and make pellets out of it, and I will make a phone cover. So you do something different. So everything that we've seen as waste is now a new material. Basically, one man's trash is another man's treasure. I'm going to give you 5 quick examples so you know how it goes, basically. A lot of Danish brands are now recycling plastics, but plastic is super ugly when you recycle it. So what they do is they take the caps. They take the white caps and put it in one pile, and then take the yellow caps in another pile, and the blue caps in the third pile, and then they grind it down, make pellets, and then mix it together and get the color. So that's how you do that. What do we do with old planes? Because no one's going to be flying anymore. Well, you do drink cabinets. That's what Lufthansa is doing. Just an example. But the thinking is there. So this is a British lady. She's realizing she was working with a shoe factory, and there were pieces of shoes laying around. No one was using that. So she picked up the pieces, made shoes. They're still super ugly, but the concept is interesting. So this Norwegian guy, he made this really, really nice red chair. He wanted organic round shapes. What does he do with the holes? He makes hangers, because we're using waste. So that's the whole concept. This is a French example. In France, apparently, they have a problem with people are throwing away oyster shells too much. It's not a problem in Sweden, but apparently in France. So what do we do with the oyster shells? You collect them, you grind them down, and you make a kitchen countertop out of it. Costs the same amount as basically a marble countertop, so you can do the oyster instead. What do we do with fish scales? You use it as a headboard in the bedroom. That's what you do. I'm not so sure everyone likes that. It says it's not supposed to be smelling, but you don't want to take your hunch on it. Regardless, but this is the concept of, this is the last example, of everything that we identified as being something we don't want to use. Everyone goes for that object right now. So if you are a designer, or if you are an event planner, talk about waste. How are you going to be using waste? Are your paper cups going to be used out of something different? You go. So that was that. So these were my 4 mega trends that we talked about. And now we're going to talk about aesthetics. What's it going to look like? Because I think that's also something you want to know about. Before I forget, I work with color company NCS. So they're one of those with digital numbers to all the color charts. I don't have the numbers, because I'm going to give you the colors of the coming years. And I don't have the numbers on my slides. But they're on your phone, free of charge, not by me. But NCS have not updated the website. They should have, but they have not. So if you download, go to the App Store or the Android Store, whatever it's called, NCS Plus. You can download it there, and then you'll get all the color codes. So when I say yellow, you can see exactly what kind of yellow it is. So now, let's talk about aesthetics and what's it going to look like in the coming years. So we start with, we're going to do 4 trends here as well. So the first one is called Young Folk, and it's also going to be named that in the app, so you can find it there as well. And as you see on the colors, it's very young. It's neon. It's Barbie. It's everything that's very, very strong colored. It's a neon pink with neon yellow with neon green, and everything is very, very, very strong, bright colors. And in this trend, you don't use it like completely. You use it in details because you want the details to stand out. It's starting already to be used now in the textile industry, so of course in fashion, but you're going to see it also very soon in pillows, for instance. But yeah, it's slowly but surely sneaking its way into the interior design world and what's it going to look like. And I just want to emphasize, it's going to be in the details. It's not going to be a whole room. If you go into a whole room that's neon green, you're going to get seasick. So yeah, keep it in the details. Like that. And same thing with this, the pool area here. It's on the pillows, not on the whole pool area. So details, details. This is a trend that works really well with graphical design. I talked about history before, and here you can see a beer brand. They're using the heads of a medieval logo, but they're adding and making it new by adding these colors. So these colors is something that works really well with cultural or history clashes, if you want to. So again, this is a Finnish example, and these are the colors used in a book. And this leads us to one of the mega things that you're going to be seeing a lot in the coming years, which are mushrooms. Mushrooms everywhere. And people are always asking me why. And I say, like, I don't know. It's just there. And that's honest, the truth. I mean, remember when you look back at some of the things you've seen. One year there were like foxes, one year there were owls, one year there were like unicorns, and whatever you have it. And this coming years, it's going to be mushrooms. It's going to be mushrooms everywhere. I actually have statistics on that. So I'm going to be talking about Pinterest 3 times in this presentation. And the increase of the use or searches for mushrooms have increased 170% in 2 years. So apparently there's a number to how much we love mushrooms right now. So that's happening. You can be looking at mushrooms like this in a setting, for instance, but we're also going to be talking about mushrooms. Marnie is grinding down mushrooms and making a new material. So yeah, we're going to be using mushrooms as a material. And we are also going to be eating, or at least talking about psychedelic mushrooms. It's not my fault. I just want to emphasize that. I'm not encouraging you to go out now and pick mushrooms and get high, but people will be talking about it. There are books, the TV shows about that. So, and also with this smiley face, I'm emphasizing this is a young trend, so we're going to see young references, like the smiley here. This is a Polish brand. They do this in sustainable materials that's 3D printed, and you see the smiley here as well. And again, the colors are standing out, not fitting in. It's supposed to take its space. Everything is about very inspired by metaverse and digital references. And this is my second example now from Pinterest. And this, when I talk to my design companies, when I talk to IKEA, when I talk to whatever brand I meet out there, and I say, like, this is a super, super interesting number. This is a super, super interesting number. Because what you can see here on the screen is the increase of searching for girls and gaming has increased 3,000%. God damn, that's a lot. And apparently there's no products out there. There are like 0 products out there. And girls are gaming a lot, and they're interested in gaming, and they want to be included in the gaming industry. So that's why they're grabbing for this. So of course, IKEA is launching a gaming collection for girls. And I think that's really accurate. That's something that's really clever. That number is extremely important for everyone who's doing something that's communicative. And also design-wise. Again, going back to the colors, I see lots and lots of glass. Glass as a material is being used out there. And we talked about the word young folk. Folk art is also something that's interesting. And a lot of folk art is using these colors that we talk about. Regardless on if you're from like the Baltic region or Scandinavian region or for the South American region or from the Uzbekistan region, everyone is using these bright colors when it comes to folk art. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of that. So, as for instance, though, how Louis Vuitton is doing here. And crochet, again, super important. Crochet is growing immensely. And the must thing for this summer, except for the mushrooms, is the crocheted hat. Everyone needs to get one this summer. Or knit it yourself or buy it off the rack. Preferably knit it yourself. And that's trend number 1. I'm trying to keep this speedy, as you realize, so you don't fall asleep. Trend number 2 when it comes to these aesthetic trends is woodkick. It's a toned-down trend, It's not a trend that stands out at the same level as the previous one, so it's actually more a calmer trend. This is for the one who's interested in quiet quitting. They need to get trends too. We need to talk about how they want to be talked about and talked to. And these people who love beige, I'm sure there are people who love beige, even there's very few of them, but there's some people who love beige. They are still people, even though they're boring. So we're giving this color chart to the beige people. What we're doing to spice it up is adding this baby blue and this apricot. With this baby blue and this apricot, it gets a bit funkier and it's more contemporary. So yeah, this is a trend for all of those people who want to jump off the bandwagon, move to the countryside, focus on children, focus on sustainability, focus on everything that's good in life. This is their trend. What we talk about also when we talk in the trend community is, it's so boring, I don't want to say it, but yeah, we're being inspired by nature. Yay! But we're being inspired in a new way, meaning that we're actually taking in the nature. So we're not only looking at it, being inspired, but we're actually taking in the physical nature. So in this chair, for instance, by a British designer, he's leaving the bark on the twig here, for instance. So that's left, so you actually get to see the wood section here. Same thing with this German designer. He goes into the woods and he collects branches, and these branches he takes care of, and he's making table legs out of it. So the inspiration from the actual physical nature, not just by looking at it, is out there. Also, the fashion industry is there. I'm not so sure I want to have those shoes, but people are inspired by nature. And again, it's not about compromising, being nice, but it's actually about standing out and doing something that's different. So yes, tons of questions occur when you see that. You go like, so should I water the shoes? What do I do when they get too long? You know, so many questions. Again, it's just a photo thing, and it's just interesting. But when you see it going like, yeah, that's kind of fun, and that's part of this trend. So yeah, look for inspiration on how you can incorporate nature, the actual physical nature, in your activities. We're also seeing how graphical design, floral prints, for instance, we're seeing more of the actual flower and not just patterns on top of each other, but we're seeing the actual flower. Same thing with the sofa with embroidery on the side. This cabinet door where you actually see the flowers, it's been printed on the cabinet door, so you see more how you take in the actual nature. And now my last and third example from Pinterest. Do you remember the 80s? No one does, you're also young, but I remember the 80s, I'm that old. And what we did in the 80s, for those of you who weren't there, we talked about history being important. For those of you who don't remember the 80s, we dried flowers, and that's coming back. So the dried flower installations. So we're going to be drying roses, we're going to be drying lavender, we're going to be drying flowers and putting it up on our cabinets. Ah, lovely. Strange, but true. It's not my fault. Again, someone counted and measured the statistics over there. So we're talking about the wild nature. This is the head office of Nike in America, and you see how it's getting wilder. It's not the tamed nature we're looking for, but actually wilder and wilder and wilder. Bark, trees. We're going to see lots and lots of wildness in our surroundings now in the future. And for those of you who have a garden, my biggest suggestion for you for this summer, it's still snow, I realize that, but summer is coming eventually. No more lawning of the grass. Don't ever cut the grass. That's super untrendy. You can quote me on that. Everyone is talking about how if you cut the grass, you're killing biodiversity. So yeah, fully relaxed green summer this year. Wear it out. Next year is going to be a new trend, don't worry. But this year you can rest for sure. So colors, we're going back to the colors. There's a niceness and calmness in these colors. You can see like combinations of various greens, also with a bit of gray here. And the wood gives sort of like warmth to it. I see that all brands out there are looking for the right version, the correct version of khaki. Everyone's doing khaki. They're chasing for khaki. These last two examples were were like brands who were saying that we're doing something cocky, and they're quite different. But everyone's chasing the right amount, the right tone for cocky. It's brown in it, together with the blue. We talked about that before. It's brown and blue, and this is from Milan last year, brown and blue together. And this gives me also an opportunity to talk about brown food, because that's trending. Brown food, what do we mean by that? Well, brown food is what it says. It's actually sort of like stew. It's something that your grandma used to make for you when you were a kid, so it's nostalgic, but it's also affordable, because we're looking for affordable food. Everything's getting super expensive, so we're looking for something that's affordable, that's inclusive, and you can bring your friends to. So there's a big trend in London right now. We have restaurants who are only serving brown food, and it's heartwarming, it's nutritious, and it's your grandma's recipe. And I think it says something, and as a reaction to the last years, when everything was like French and expensive and stacked on heights and everything, and now it's brown food, your grandma's recipe, that's where it's going. So that was trend number 2, and I see the clock is ticking down. I'll try to speed this up as much as I can, see how this goes. Speak faster, perhaps. Trend number 3 is what we call the red trend, meaning that we have different versions of red with it. So depending on how you count, but you have 3 versions of red, a really dark red, and 2 versions of pink with it. There's a gray or a cement tone to it, and there's a fudge brown, and the blue. It's not this year we see a lot of Klein blue, they say. So this is a softer blue. And red, why red? Well, red is a reaction. It makes us react to something. It could be stop sign, it could be nightlife, but it could also, of course, be lipstick. And as you've read before, when there's a recession, lipstick sales goes up. Why? Well, we can't afford the dress, so we buy the lipstick. That's why lipstick sales increase in times like recession. But we need to see it together with the red, together with the gray, the cement tone with it, the red together with the cement, the red together with the cement. And here's a cabinet door, red together with sort of like a cement bluish tone, and it works really well with wood in this sense. Here again, red and blue together. We're going to see more versions of red and blue together in the future. I think this is a perfect trend for lounges. So it's a very loungy color scheme, lounges like this. This is a very dark picture, but you get the sensation. Red, lounge, cool, quiet, expensive. And it gets a bit shiny too. So this red is a bit flirting with the 1980s, and yes, this is the nostalgia we're going into right now. The 1980s is here, the 1980s, the 1980s, the 1980s, the 1980s. And regardless if it is the 1980s or not, it looks like the 1980s. This drawing on the back is supposed to look like Keith Haring. It's an installation made for a magazine, and it's supposed to look like Keith Haring. And then you have the proper Keith Haring for H&M, of course, because right now we're going through a period of the 80s. And here we have Marimekko as well again, and had the last picture, no, second to last. Here from Hermes, an installation they made in Italy, a combination of various tones of red together with the wood, brown, and blue. So that's it. Can you have red on your walls at your home? Don't have to answer. You don't have to answer. Almost tricked you. You're going like, no. Can you have red on your walls? Of course you can. At least, I think the Australian brand, Benjamin Moore, says you can have red on your walls at your home. It's a bit intense, but why not? I think we need something fun in these depressing times. And last trend then, this is called Stargazer. And again, here, depending on how you count, I could see almost 4 colors of purple. So you have a lighter purple here, a super light purple, a dark purple, and this brown, depending on if you're nice or not, you could call it burgundy, right? Let's say we're nice, we call it burgundy. And then you have turquoise, and that yellow is actually gold. So gold is coming back big time. But let's kick off with turquoise. I would say that turquoise is the new cheeky. You know, that's sort of like the flirty one. Everything that's turquoise is sort of like the wink in the eye and going like, yeah, I see you. So turquoise is fun, energetic, and the new pink, simply that. So here's a plate by Hermes again, turquoise with gold and burgundy, super fun. And this is a girl that I saw in a fashion magazine, and this is the girl I want to play football with. She has a turquoise sweater, and she looks super cool, and I just want to be playing football with her. Here is an ad by an Italian furniture brand, and they're using the content that I'm talking about, different versions of purples with turquoise and some gold. Works really well for hotel environments as well. In Finland, you could see this trend installation by my trend colleague in Finland, Susanna Björklund. And as you see, there's different versions of purple and the turquoise on the wall, like in the details. Here's a setting from Milan. This image has been circling around in interior magazines already, so you might have seen it. The room is with different versions of purple. You see the turquoise chairs and the gold walls on the back there. Super nice, super nice. This is how you should live 2024, I'm telling you. I don't, but you should. Purple then. Purple is the royal and regal color. This is the front cover of Vogue magazine when Queen Elizabeth passed away. And yeah, we're going to see much, much more purple, various tones of purple. Purple as in glass, and these are from some of the fairs I've seen before. And I think that we're going to see, talking about purple as a new kind of luxury. Lalique is a cosmetics brand or a glass brand, and they're doing this new perfume bottle, and we're talking about the same colors, basically. So purple, the turquoise, and a bit of gold, and that's the sign of luxury for the future. Here again, the mixture of these colors. This is a brand, Google them. They're so ridiculously expensive, but fun. We talked about happy being a trend previously, so you can be fun and rich, I guess. Different kinds of versions of purple, turquoise, and gold in that sense. So gold, yes, lots and lots of gold. Every kind of gold. I tend to say that we want to see gold in unexpected spaces. Like we see it in architecture, absolutely. This is a chair that's made of driftwood, but then you covered it in gold, and it gets a different look. Yeah, gold. And again, my almost last picture should be like gold in unexpected spaces, like a doorpost. Super nice to have that in gold. Not the whole wall, for instance, but unexpectedly. So, what does a trend hunter look like when it's New Year's? And my next slide is Trend Stefan going ready for New Year's Eve. And I realize that everything's going to be gold one way or another. Ladies, you're going to be wearing gold makeup. It's coming strongly. So there's going to be gold everywhere. So what does a boy do? Well, he uses this as a crown. So I fixed my hair and I got it in my hair. A bit of trickiness there, but still, yeah, gold in unexpected places. So why not? That's how you do it, 2023. Rounding off, slowly but surely. So that was the last trend that we talked about. And, of course, we're going to summarize. We need to summarize, because you need to remember what I've talked about now for almost an hour. I've bombarded you with information. Have you realized that? And no opportunity to question me. I just go on and on and on. So when it comes to these aesthetic trends, we talked about the first one being very young-oriented, with the strong colors. In the color scheme, you see lots of lighter pastels, so you don't have to overuse the strong colors. Then we talked about woodkick being for those who like calmness and for those who were interested in the beige lifestyle. Moving to the countryside and have different values, that's for them. Don't forget the apricot. Apricot is a super important color in this trend. And then we talked about red on red together with a bit of blue, which was fun, and 80s, we talked about that. And lastly, we talked about purple and of course turquoise being the new cheeky, and gold on unexpected spaces. Here you see it on the stairs. That's where the gold is on this picture. And I'm not done with the summary yet. Remember what we talked about before? We talked about the aesthetic trends. We talked about the mega trends. So here's the proper summary, the mega trends. We're going to be looking for happy. Don't forget that. Happiness is super important. Whatever you do, try. Yeah. I'm trying to round up. Yeah, I'm getting this. Happiness is important. We're looking for everything that makes us happy, to make our heart skip a beat. Fear of missing out. The whole quiet quitting thing is there, totally. Retail is changing. No one wants to buy a product anymore, but you want to have an experience, like bookstore dating. Shops are not places where you just buy things. Shops should be places where you go for dating. That's where it is. And also remember the moments economy. Because we're looking for opportunities to celebrate. There's things for you to do there. How can we celebrate more? How can you make money? How can you get my money for celebrations? But last but not least, what makes you guaranteed happy? What makes you guaranteed happy? Hanging out with your friends. Don't forget that. And with this, I say thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. That was super, super interesting. Thank you for that. And now we have, 5 minutes for some questions. Yeah. Some time left, and maybe audience has some questions for you.
Yeah. I talked sort of like forcefully, so people go like...
Yeah, it was a bit shocking, but super nice. So maybe our audience has some questions, or we have a question here. So there, please, the microphone is coming to you. And...
Thank you for a very good presentation. And one question, shortly, what make trend? Because you talk about trend becoming and what kind of trend with colors and something like that. So, shortly, what kind make that, in your opinion?
That's a big question, of course. Basically, you're asking what make trends occur, how they happen, right? So they can happen basically from out of two reasons. Innovation, like technical innovation, is driving trends, of course. But then it's basically about like we need to do something, and we have this pendulum. Like sometimes we like something that's minimalistic, and then we want maximalistic. So the pendulum is there as well. So that's the short answer. Technological innovations, and then a reaction to something we've had before. So all the colors that we're seeing right now is a reaction to the minimalism that we've seen for the last 10, 15 years. That was a short answer.
So maybe one more question. We have time. Anybody else?
I can ask.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I know you can. Please.
So Gabriella, how long do you think these trends will last?
Shortly.
Shortly?
Yeah. You will come here next year and you will talk about totally different trends, right?
Yeah.
So we will be waiting for you. It was a pleasure to have you here, Stefan.
Thank you.